Rated M for mature.
Don't let your kids watch it!
I'll do the first one.
いい加減にしろ。
Keiichi's growl resounded from the pits of his stomach. What a delightful sound. It was like he wanted to rip me apart.
ようやくお目覚め？私、さっき嘘をついたね。シオンを一番むごたらしく殺してやろうと思って閉じ込めておいたけど、まだ思いつかないって言ったやつ。あれが嘘。
I smiled menacingly as I laid out the huge nails and hammers specially made for her the nail table.
あの子に自分のせいで死ぬ大勢の人の悲鳴をたっぷりと聞かせてからなかなかセンスいいでしょ。
They didn't die because of her, they died because of you.
お前は誰だ？
は？ミオンでしょ？園崎ミオン。恐怖で頭が変になっちゃった？
This is why adding choices to a game that never intended to have choices in the first place is stupid. Oh, it was added posthumously? Oh, that's really, really dumb.
違うな。お前が園崎ミオンであるはずがない。
My hand stopped dead in its tracks. Kei-chan? Shit. I decided it would be too late once we reached Shion's cell. So the name guessing game is already over. Oh well, whatever. Bring it on. I'll listen to you. This is your last chance.
へえ。じゃあ、私がミオンじゃなかったら、私は誰なわけ？
Come on, Kei-chan. Guess who I am? Try and save Mion, the girl who fell in love with you. And then I heard it. I most definitely heard it. Keiichi's mouth trembled as he spoke the words, yet his eyes shone with a strong conviction. And he spoke the truth.
シオンだな。
Wow. You're right. You actually won. You're amazing, Kei-chan. A strange feeling fills my chest as I shiver. I had convinced myself there was no way he could guess. But he did, and I couldn't help feeling a bit surprised. This Keiichi had yet to again pierce through my disguise.
お前はミオンじゃない。さっきまで一緒だったミオンを返せ。
Oh, so I should probably just turn the choices off in the future ones. Who are you?
え？
You aren't Mion, right?
え？だから私、ミオン。
No, that's not it. That wasn't what I meant. You aren't Mion.
どうして私がお姉じゃないって思うんですか？
I don't know. Just a feeling. In my mind, memories of the time Keiichi recognized me at the toy store had been revived. Yes. Even back then, Keiichi could tell I wasn't my sister Shion. I had feigned composure and offered to come back with a straight face, but on the inside I was shook. We were both capable of becoming Mion or Shion, but because I was the real Mion and was the only Shion legally on paper, reversing the roles was even easier for me. Our tones of speech, quirks, and even our auras, we had both mastered each other's habits so perfectly, even our own parents weren't able to tell us apart. In fact, wasn't that exceptionally sharp Rena not able to figure out I wasn't her best friend Mion after all, despite being so close? So why? Has this Keiichi ever actually seen through my disguise twice?
どうして私がお姉じゃないって思うんですか？
My ears perked up, eager to hear the answer. Keiichi's reply was a soft murmur like an insect's whisper as he gasped for breath in pain. His voice was so quiet, it was nearly inaudible, but I could almost recognize the words on his lips. Yes, just a feeling, he says.
へえ。
Yet again, it was just a feeling. Didn't he say the exact same thing to me that time at the toy store? How nice, how nice, what a splendid answer. You'd think why my sister of all people fell in love with me, him. However, no, rather it was exactly because of this. Along with my raving madness, the blood that was simmering in my veins until just now rapidly began to turn chill and coagulate, that's the word. If I were to describe it, it felt like stagnant muddy water flowing through a gutter. Even now, it was all so hilarious I could fall over laughing, but I didn't smile. On the contrary, my face was vacant and austere, like a no mask of frigid ice. And then, the darkness seeped into the innermost depths of my mind, and I was already partied with my self-restraint as a human being. I reach out and touch Keiichi's hair, matted with sweat and caked with blood. Keiichi whips his head away at once in disgust, as if we were staving off a housefly, and glares at me defiantly.
触るな！ この鬼め返せミオンを返せよ
Yeah, this is not what happened in Chapter 2, so I probably picked the wrong choice.
俺の最高の友人だったミオンを返せ
Having lost liberty over his whole body, he continued to howl and cry as if he were spewing blood. I was supposed to have sold my soul to the devil to become a demon, but faced with such a bitter rejection, I felt the crumbled remnants of my emotions stir within me. Munch, crunch, munch, crunch, munch, crunch. My throat begins to itch. The crooks of my elbows, my wrists, and every other joint in my body begins to tingle and prickle, and I feel irrationally restless. The more the restlessness and irritation piled up, the more this squalling, whimpering person inside of me felt bothersome, revolting, so awful I could slaughter him right away. To be frank, until just now, I had no intention of killing Keiichi. I was truly ready to spare at least his life, if he guessed the right answer. That was the rule I decided upon. Okay, I'll admit it. Just like Shion, I had also fallen in love with Keiichi. No, you haven't. He was incredibly silly and good-natured, unbelievably warm-hearted and gentle. Talking to him made me feel contented. Besides, I even sympathized with him. Unlike the lot I'd dealt with so far, Keiichi was indeed just a victim, caught up in my selfish revenge drama. Now that my revenge against the Sonozaki family was almost complete, I didn't mind saving him. That may sound too convenient, but perhaps the human side of me that was fond of Keiichi wanted to save him, in order to seek his forgiveness for my actions. But I've changed my mind. Now, having witnessed Keiichi guess the right answer before my very eyes, my heart was suffused with a staining, gaping, overpowering darkness, as if it were freezing over. Why? Why was Shion alone able to meet such a wonderful person? Satoshi-kun could only make a vague distinction between me and Shion. Satoshi-kun abandoned me and ran away. However, this Keiichi trusts Shion. He's defending Shion, whom he values as his best friend, by seeing through my lies. And as a result, he gave up on me. Detestable, maddening, despicable, enviable, so much that I want to kill them. That's right. The moment he defended Shion, he became one of them. He's equally guilty, you low-life scum. I despise you, I despise you, I despise you, I despise you, you fucking piece of shit! Munch, crunch, munch, crunch, munch, crunch. Oh, what a nuisance. Shion's screams coming from the corner of the chamber were enjoyable before, but now they felt unbearably noisy and pissed me off. How about I just get rid of Shion first? I wanted to kill her after she had the most exquisite taste of anguish and terror, but now I could barely suppress the indiscriminate urge to slaughter welling up within me. Keiichi was relentlessly yelling his protests toward me. His throat closed up eventually, and he's gasped for breath, hoarsely continuing to demand Mion's return.
Gei-chan?
Have a good night, Ruben. I hope you have a better night than Satoko did. Yeah.
メイドの
that
土
was
産
mean.
なんて気の利いたものじゃないけれど、どうしても知りたがっているようだから、一つだけ教えてあげるよ。私の中に鬼が宿ったのはずいぶん前。その鬼は私を蝕み強行に駆り立てようとした。だけれど私はそれを理解で
Yeah, right. You did not suppress it with any reasoning. You have no reasoning.
鬼はそれで収まり、私はその鬼はどこかへ行ってしまったんだと思い込んでいた。でも本当は違った。私の中から出て行ったんじゃなく、私の中で眠っていただけだったの。
Yes. When I learned about Satoshi-kun's disappearance, my ailing heart had crammed itself with rage to compensate for the despair. But that was the limit of my insanity. I would never have snapped. Time had healed me, and my memories of Satoshi-kun were neatly wrapped up and pushed into the back of my mind.
その鬼はある小さなことをきっかけにまた目覚めてしまった。それは何に原因があったと思う？
It really was the smallest of the smallest things.
鬼の私が教えるのも変だけれど、あんたが全てをおかしくしてしまった原因。
No, it was all you. A tear rolled down my cheek. That's right. Back then, if you hadn't given the doll to Mion, none of this would have happened. What? You didn't give the doll to Mion.
ケイちゃんには理解できないだろうね。理解できなくて当然。だけどね、そこからドミノ倒しみたいに
No,
パタパ
no.
タパタと
You're blaming all this
い
on
ろん
the
なもの
doll?
が倒れ始め
No,
て
you're a terrible person and it was
収
your
拾が
fault.
つかなくなってしま
All
っ
of it.
た。初めの小さな一つを倒したあなたに自覚がないのは当然だろうけど、あなたが元凶なの。
Nope. Back then, if Keiichi hadn't shown any affection, Shion wouldn't have been overjoyed. She wouldn't have been overjoyed and cheerfully boasted about him to me. As I was listening to her, I was reminded of Satoshi-kun. I became jealous of her for having someone she loved so close to her. It was a very small jealousy, but it had awoken the demon who was sleeping deep inside of me. After that, I just let the demon take over. The demon fed upon the copious amounts of sadness I felt for Satoshi-kun, and in return committed the heinous acts that Satoshi-kun himself would never be happy with, all in the name of avenging him. And now the horrific events that had followed were inviting me into the realm of demons that had no return.
そんな嘘だろ
Yeah, Shirley, you are right. She did say that he was a victim literally like 10 minutes ago tops. And she's already flip-flopped. Because she's a nutcase.
自覚がないのは当然。でも、紛れもなく元凶なのはケイちゃん。
Back then, if you hadn't chosen to give the doll to Mion, we could have arrived at a different future. He didn't, though! Mion literally was saying how sad she was that he didn't give the doll to her. No, that wasn't right. Wouldn't pinpointing Keiichi's small action at the beginning be the height of transferring blame? Yes. I was implying such a silly thing had awoken the demon inside me. Even without Keiichi's act, I would have been awoken anyway. At the end of the day, it was all my fault. Yes, it was. I didn't fight the demon. I allowed it to reside in my soul, and I readily offered it my heart. Keiichi didn't hide his tears. They were pouring down his cheeks. Maybe he was crying in my place, as I was not free to do so, having chosen to become a tearless demon. That's why I must go on, as the demon. There was no room for human emotions or hesitation anymore. And then, munch, crunch, munch, crunch, munch, crunch, snap! Shion's wails rasping like silk tearing apart, along with my screams of ecstasy. The last thing I heard were those everlasting reverberations. Is that not the bad end, then? That is different than what happened in Chapter 2. June 1983. A case of serial disappearances occurred in Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone City. The suspect is Shion Sonozaki. Allegedly, she abducted, imprisoned, and killed 4 Hinamizawan residents, Oryo Sonozaki, Kichiro Kimiyoshi, Rika Furude, and Satoko Hojo, between June 19th and the 21st. Preliminary investigation into the incident was delayed at the time due to insufficient evidence, but by chance, the case was solved rather abruptly. On the morning of the 22nd, a patrol vehicle stationed outside the Sonozaki mansion heard screams from within, and personnel infiltrated the premises as an emergency measure. The suspect's missing elder sister, Mion Sonozaki, and 2 of her classmates, Keiichi Maibara and Ren Ryugu, were taken into custody. And now we know that this was the bad end because Keiichi died, and Keiichi refuses to die from anyone but himself. Yeah, that's it. However, Keiichi Maibara, who had previously been lured into the crime scene, had sustained stab wounds perpetrated by the suspect. He was immediately transferred to an emergency unit, but they were diagnosed as a minor injury. Having been the one with the utmost opportunity to engage in conversation with the suspect until the very end, he will be subject to interrogation once he's recovered from the shock. Furthermore, the apprehended suspect was found collapsed at a place approximately 2 meters away from where Keiichi Maibara was restrained, and sustained scratch wounds on her throat. She was also transferred to an emergency facility, but was pronounced dead on 13/48 on the 22nd. The official autopsy determines that the immediate cause of death was a hemorrhagic shock due to excessive blood loss. Hair, pieces of skin, and blood of the 4 missing people, Oryo Sonozaki, Kichiro Kimiyoshi, Rika Furude, and Satoko Hojo, were recovered from the hidden chamber that was discovered in the outbuilding basement of the Sonozaki family property, where they were supposedly killed. It was concluded that the victims were assaulted in that hidden chamber. The victims' bodies were discovered at the bottom of an old well, as per the testimony of the victim, Mion Sonozaki. In addition, investigations continue into any possible connection to the series of mysterious deaths in recent years, but no evidence of Shion Sonozaki's direct or indirect involvement have been found. There are still many obscurities on the motive of the incident, but due to an extreme non-cooperation from the Sonozaki family and the residents of Hinamizawa, a large amount of time will be required to clarify matters on this front. See, here's the problem. The problem with the plot twist that Shion is actually Mion and Mion is actually Shion. When they say that, the victim, they have the testimony of Mio and Sonozaki. Which one are they talking about? The one who did all the crazy killings or the one who was imprisoned? It's impossible to figure out now. So I don't think that was actually a good move on their part. It makes it needlessly complicated. The local police who are familiar with the region offer that this may have been an internal lynching incident as punishment for the sacrilegious acts carried out against Hinamizawa's religious beliefs. It has been established that the incident is unique and rooted in the regional community beliefs, and a cautious investigation has been ordered by the prefectural police. We expected to gain valuable hints from the missing person and the suspect's sister, Mion Sonozaki, who was under confinement for the longest time period. But it was observed that she had sustained severe mental trauma from the incident, and her inquiry has been postponed in favor of her psychological and physical recovery. According to her primary care physician, although her condition is fairly serious, there is a strong prospect of recovery, as she is at present undergoing rehabilitation with support from her close friends. Several weeks have passed since then. After that incident, I was rescued by Uisi-san and his team, whom Rena had summoned. Yay, Rena's the winner here! I had no other after effects aside from the consciousness that had been wiped white. If I were to have any at all, it would be the deep scars that have been left inside my heart. As I was being examined at the hospital, I was subjected to various queries from Uisi-san. I tried to answer him with whatever little I knew, but I had no idea if I met his expectations, and neither did I bear any responsibility to do so. From what I had heard, Shion had already lost too much blood by the time the police arrived, and she had stopped breathing. They urgently called for an ambulance and took her to the clinic, but there was barely any time for first aid, and she took her last breath. I wouldn't have called an ambulance for her. She deserved it. The silver lining was that Mion, who had been captive in her cell, was safe and taken into custody by the police. At least she's alive, but she probably would wish she wasn't. Up until the moment I lost consciousness, I was afraid that Shion may fly into a rage and murder Mion, but I was just glad that we had managed to avoid the worst-case scenario. Only when Mion was rescued was she emaciated and sustained several periodic psychological trauma. That's not the word I said, but alright. Apparently at the time of her rescue, she had been completely unable to respond to the police's questions. Right now, Mion is admitted at a large hospital in the vicinity and is undergoing treatment for her psychological and physical injuries. In the beginning, when Rena and I went to visit, her eyes were downcast in desolation and she looked completely worn out. It was a horrible state to be in. Yeah, that's very different. Yeah, this is not how it happened in Chapter 2, so this is different, but it probably explains a lot of what did happen in Chapter 2. But despite it all, as of late, she is on the way to her recovery, finally well enough to show us a few smiles. Of course, we have been careful to not bring up Satoko or Rika-chan, and especially Shion. The police later conducted an on-site investigation at the Sonozaki house's underground storehouse, several days after the incident took place. Particularly, the well inside Satoko and Riku-chan's bodies were disposed of by Shion was carefully surveyed by the prefectural forensic investigators, and true to Shion's testimony, the girls were discovered. Apparently, sediment had accumulated at the bottom of the well, and hence the discovery had taken several days. Along with Satoko and the other victims, skeletal remains that were several years, even several decades old, were found. But it's not like I would know that much about that. Even when I was once summoned back to that place to assist with the crime scene investigation, but I really didn't help them find anything important. The Sonozaki family in Okinomiya, in other words, Mion and Shion's parents, came home every day several times along with many of their followers to formally apologize. And no matter how much my parents refused, they kept piling up banknotes worth millions of yen as compensation. And once that money had been piled up and reached a certain amount, on the same day there came an envelope with a letter instead. I have no idea what was written in that letter. But my parents had discussed amongst themselves for 2 nights straight without consulting me, and decided we would move away from Hinamizawa. Probably a smart move.
そっか。
Oh. I'm sorry, Rena.
引っ越しちゃうんだね。いつ？
来月の終わり。ひなみ沢には結局半年も居つかなかったことになるな。
寂しくなるね。きっとみーちゃんも悲しむよ。
悪い。ミオンにも正直話すべきか迷ってる。
This is where, because my theory is because Keiichi lost consciousness, and then they found Shion's dead body and Mion in the cell. I think that she did the swap. I think that evil Shion basically let Mion out, killed her by like making her claw her throat out or whatever, threw it next to him, and then locked herself in the cell and pretended to be the victim. That's what I think happened. Once Rena has heard me say that, she strongly insisted I had to tell her no matter what.
確かに 今みーちゃんにそれを告げるのは酷なのかもしれない。でも圭一くんが黙っていなくなっちゃう方がきっとみーちゃんは辛いと思う。だから一緒に話しに行こうね。
Is she still in the hospital? If so, then maybe.
ああ、そうだな。
Okay. That does look like the actual Mion, but I guess I don't know for sure.
そっか。ケイちゃん、ひなみ沢からいなくなっちゃうんだ。
Even though she had heard it from me, Mion whispered those words sadly, but she didn't seem that surprised. Surely she had mentally prepared herself for this outcome somewhere inside her heart.
すまん。けど俺、いつかひなみ沢に戻ってくるつもりだ。約束する。
いいよ、無理しなくても。ここに来ても、きっとケイちゃんにいいことなんて何もないんだから。
みーちゃん。
But Frenna and I wanted to say it wasn't so. But after such a tragic incident, what verbal consolation could we offer that would help? To Mion, who had suffered a much greater pain than we ever had. And so we just stood there, unable to say anything, just wallowing in silence.
私も東京に行こうかな。
え？
来週退院できるらしいんだけど、ここにいてもいいことあんまりないし。
Yeah, but in chapter 2, Mion showed up at his house at night, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's her!" Okay, because keep in mind, he knew that the one who was trapped in the cell, who was innocent, died. And then he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is a real one," and then she stabbed him. That was part 2 of him being the stupidest human being ever. And then she apparently jumped from her balcony at the end of chapter 2, but then she also showed up in the hospital room, but I'm pretty sure that Keiichi was just hallucinating that because he was crazy.
東京でなくてもどこか遠く、私のこともひなみ沢のことも知らない土地に行きたい。
That might be the best move, honestly, after something like this.
やり直せるなんて都合のいいことは考えてないけど、もう疲れちゃった。全部投げ出したいよ。
ミオン。
Mion had been forced to carry the name of the next head of the Sonozaki family and the representative of the three great families, all due to a small misunderstanding. You just came out. This is a completely different ending from the original series? Oh, this is an alternate ending? Despite feeling uncertain and weary about her unplanned responsibility, she had nevertheless been earnest and given her all to fulfill her duties. But to think all of that had been concluded in such a manner. It was a tremendous loss that it's almost a surprise she hasn't completely lost her mind. Who can really blame Mion anymore for making such a faint-hearted remark? And so I wanted to devote even a little bit of my remaining time here for her.
そうだな、ミオン。一緒にどこか行くか。
え？どこへ？
決まってるだろ。旅行だよ。俺がここにいられる期間はもうあまりないけど、だったらせめて少しでもいい思い出を取り返
Assuming
してお
this
かないとな。
actually is the good twin, that's very sweet. But on the chance that it's the bad twin, this is very stupid.
東京はちょっと遠いけど、大きな町とかに足を伸ばしてうまい飯とか買い物とかさ。どうだ？
どうって言われても。
You heard about this ending? I heard people didn't like it. We'll see about this.
それとってもいいと思うな。
Given the stuff that happens up to the point of making the choice, I don't see any ending being good.
行っておいでよみーちゃんね。
けどレナ一緒に来てくれないの？
After hearing that, even I grew puzzled. Hadn't I just suggested all 3 of us hang out together?
だってレナは馬になんて蹴られたくないもん。
Rena, your eyes got replaced with eyebrows again.
だから2人っきりでどうぞ。あ、お土産買ってきてくれると嬉しいな。はう。
She's shipping us. Boom! Mion blushes vigorously. I was slow to react because I didn't understand what Rena was getting at, but seeing Mion's face imbued with a color after a long time, my heartbeat grew faster for a moment. No, it wasn't what I implied when I was suggesting the idea, but depending on the point of view, wouldn't this be an invitation to a date?
いかん。ちょっと調子に乗りすぎたかも。
Indeed, after seeing it that way, I was overcome with embarrassment. But there was no way I could back out after coming this far. This is all for Mion's sake. Pull yourself together, Keiichi Maebara.
どうだミオン
Rena's such a real winner. Like, she knows how much we've both suffered this time, and she's like, I want them to be happy together.
あ、もちろん医者と親御さんにはちゃんと了解を取るつもり
You're
だぜ
believing this is the tattoo twin. I think so too now, but I'm still hesitant.
あんまり無理はさせないつもりだから考えておいてくれよ
わかった。考えておくね。
はう、みーちゃんが久々に可愛いよ。嬉しいな、嬉しいな。はうはうはう。
When are we going to get another set of tips? We haven't gotten the last set of tips for like 2 hours! 2.5 hours! I was just gonna get to 2 sets of tips and then call it a stream, but we still haven't gotten one! After that, we spent the day talking about harmless stuff that happened at school or in the neighborhood until it was evening. I felt like Mion had regained some of her spirit and acted a bit like she used to, so I was happy. After a few days, Mion had contacted me to say she was okay with my plan. And after spending a few more days to convince my folks and Mion's parents, we set off on a day's trip to a metropolis that had one of those bullet train stations.
うわー、しばらく見ないうちにここってすごく大きくなったんだね。
As soon as she stepped out of the station, Mion set eyes on a scenery sprawling with people and cars. She shared her feelings and excitement as she looked on admiringly. From what I heard, unless it's on very important business, Mion rarely gets to leave the village, let alone come out to a big city like this. Because of that, everyone she saw looked fresh and fascinating to her, and she pranced around merrily, almost like a child.
ねえねえ、ケイちゃん、これからどこに行くの？
そうだなミオンの好みから考えてあそこはどうだ
The place I was pointing to, one I had checked out in advance, was a massive, beautifully decorated game arcade that towered over a corner to the station's shopping square.
ふうなかなか盛大に遊び回ったな
面白かった。あんなにゲームで遊んだの本当に久しぶりだよ。
As I sat down on the bench, Mion was gleefully draining her can of juice with a huge smile. That expression was unlike the gloomy one Mion had worn at the hospital. Next to me was the Mion I knew well. Earlier, we'd had a blast, vowing to conquer all the game consoles in the vicinity, and made quite the ruckus without caring about the people watching. Mion was enjoying herself playing on consoles she wasn't used to, and had gone on a rampage, laughing out loud, getting worked up, and challenging me to matches. Although I couldn't help thinking about what-ifs as I was playing with her. About how much fun it would have been if only it weren't just the two of us, but also Rena, Satoko, and Rika-chan as well. I'm sure Mion must have been thinking the same thing. Which is also why I outdid myself, making so much noise trying to battle the loneliness, when I had realized.
なあミオン
何ケイちゃん？
With faint drops of sweat coating her forehead, Mion turned to face me with a broad smile. Mion's cheerfulness was most likely just her being considerate towards me for having brought her here. If that was so, then I needed to do the same for her.
お前全部初めてって言ってたけどそれ本当か初プレイで2台もハイスコアに名前入れるなんてとんでもない実力だぜ
ちっちっち4台の間違いだよケイちゃん。こういうのはセンスと勘、そして動体視力がものを言うのさ。普段の鍛錬を怠らなかった成果だよ。むしろケイちゃんはアドバンテージをひっくり返されたことを恥と思うべきだね。
おいおいちょっと待てよエアホッケーの時とかあれ何なんて後ろを指さして顔を向けた瞬間打ち込んで
What
き
is
たの
happening? You
反
don't know
則
where
だ
this is
ろ
going. I don't either, but can we please get a save point soon? For like a tip section. Good lord, I normally end these streams after 2 hours. We're at hour 3.5, and I have work tomorrow.
まったくよ
勝てば官軍、負ければ賊軍だよ。
Bad end kiss? Then the good end is gonna be where he gets stabbed? Seems weird. For the time being, it's alright if her well-being is a front. All I hope for is that someday, when this becomes real and she recovers her old cheerful self.
いやいやそれにしてもゲーセンも雰囲気が変わったよな少し前ならタバコ臭くて暗いイメージだったけど 家族連れで遊びに来る人も結構いたからちょっと驚いたぜ。
そうだね。やっぱたまにはこういうのも楽しいよね。あ、今何時ぐらい
5時くらいかな。
あー、じゃあ夕食まであと少しだね。どこかで食べて帰る？
そうだな。ファーストフードでハンバーガーなんてどうだ？
おお、いいね。あ、その前にちょっと失礼。
Mion said that and just stood up from the bench. I found it odd for a minute, but then I misunderstood her intention and...
店にもトイレはあるぞ。うわっ
Instead of a reply, I had empty cans thrown at me. Mion stuck out her tongue at me and left in a hurry. And after I watched her retreating figure, I plopped back down on the bench and looked up at the sky. The sky was pure blue and crystal clear, and it felt amazing. Everything seemed to be glowing, bathed in the brilliant summer sun. It was a good thing we came here. Mion also seemed to show signs of recovery.
そうだな。なんなら今度はいっそ東京にでも誘ってみるか。
It would be cheaper if she stayed at our new place there, but I feel like our parents may be concerned for a while. We still needed more time to go back to how it was.
そうなると泊まる場所も探しておかないとな。あとは
Why, hello there.
ああ、こんにちは。
Oh? Wait, what the heck? Are you hearing something?
いやー、ごめんケイちゃん。
Is that actually you?
トイレ人いっぱいでさ。あ、結構待たせちゃったみたいだから飲み物買ってきた。
I waited for like 10 seconds.
どっちがいい？あれ、ケイちゃん寝ちゃったの？もうしょうがないな。女の子とのデート中に居眠りなんてエチケット違反だよ。ケイちゃん、もういつまで寝てるんだよ。ほら起きて。ケイちゃん。
What?
は
Excuse me? What the heck is going on? Bad end? How? Okay, I now know why people don't like that ending, because it doesn't make any sense. At all. Shion couldn't have killed us, she died. Unless that's part of the new mystery. Well, you know what? At least I got my wish. We found a stop point for the stream. There are still 2 flipping tip sections left after this. I don't know how. Wow, they really need to... They really need to put more checkpoints in this to give you clear points to save and quit. Because, wow, they did not do a good job dividing that up in this chapter. Mainly at the end. That was dumb! And why was that choice different from the other one? Why? They were the same thing! Ugh. Well, that's unfortunate that we're ending the stream on that dumb note, but, well, there we go. Thanks for watching. This was a tough one to get through. We will be streaming it again on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 days before Halloween. I sure hope we get through the rest of that stream, but since there's still 2 tip sections left, and we still haven't gotten to one, who the heck knows? If I can't get through it on Wednesday, I guess we'll be going through it on Thursday. If I can't get through it on Thursday as well, well, too bad. We're not playing it on Halloween. We'd have to finish it on November 1st, but there we go. This is kind of suffering from ending fatigue a little bit. I feel like this could have been significantly shorter because there's been a lot of repeat information and just Shion being a nutcase. We didn't need all that, but alright. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great rest of your night, a good start to your week, and God bless everybody.